No, no! No! Are you listening?
Sean from Middle Grounded. Here we go. We're going to try to make this video again, ranking the catfish in the order that would have been best for Lorne, and then ranking them in the order that Lorne would have chosen them, because the proprietor of the trailer of failure, Mr. Penis, has no idea what's best for him. In my opinion, number one for me would have been Jamie Amy, but only if she spoke in Wine Lover's real voice, because man oh man, I could listen to her talk forever. Moving on. Number 5, not counting Rhoda, Kayla, or Paula, or Amanda James, or any of the other ones, because they don't count. They're not significant enough, and the Rhoda saga makes me ill. Number 5, in the order that Lorne should have ended up with them, and I think it's a no-brainer. I think this is the one that would have sent him over the edge. We would have had domestic violence. We would have had fighting all of the time. And the only reason I say fighting is maybe she could have kicked his butt. Because as sad as it seems, I wouldn't count anybody beating up Lorne Armstrong as domestic violence. I would count it as a gift. All right, I'm half joking there. Winnie is number 5. Those two brought out the worst in each other. Now I'm pretending that these catfish women are real. Winnie was a coke addict who could not take care of herself, and Lorne is an alcoholic who couldn't take care of himself, let alone take care of someone else. Winnie and Lorne would call each other the most vile names, but Winnie in particular was on the receiving end of things I wouldn't say to my worst enemy. Cunthole, asshole, and it just goes on and on. He thought Winnie was cheating all of the time. Now granted, she made it seem like she was cheating. But with Lorne, he cannot function with a woman. And I've got 2 videos coming out this weekend, and they might be longer ones. And they deal with what could potentially be the problem with him and why he continuously puts himself in situations that are not healthy for him. So, other than the fact that Winnie is a coke addict, a schizophrenic, an easy abuse victim, and someone who would spark anger in him, there are many other reasons, but I'm going to focus on one, that voice. Imagine Lorne on a bipolar swing day, and he comes home, and they get in an argument, and that voice starts shrieking and screeching and complaining about everything that he does. If you're bipolar and your blood pressure's up, sometimes your skin gets warm, and you've got this banshee yelling at you, it's probably going to set you off. So Lorne did not need to be with Winnie. Next, Casey. There's a reason. Casey was a sex addict. She was an easy target. Lorne refused to let her childhood trauma go. He wanted to boss her around and demand things. And Casey, she was kind of a pushover, but she would fight back. But the bottom line is, Lorne likes to hold things. He's not a sociopath. He's not. And I can prove that. And I'm going to prove that. But he has some of the traits. And one of them is being able to hold things over someone's head and constantly use it to manipulate them and get them to do what he wants. So, Casey, being a sex addict, constantly putting herself in situations where Lorne is just going to assume she's cheating. Because if she really was a sex addict, he's not going to help her get better. He's not. Because just like Winnie and the coke, it's a prison they put themselves in. And Lorne would take the key, throw it away, and hold them in that prison so that they have no power. Because that's ultimately what he wants, to be the one in control, to be dominant. He would just abuse Casey mentally, verbally, possibly physically. She'd never get better. Next up, we're not talking about Robot, we're talking about Jamie Amy. And the reason I mentioned Jamie Amy is because she had a job and she had money. And Lorne does not have a job and he doesn't have money. Lorne might finally lose his virginity to her because the other two were too crazy, and I think he's already intimidated, and he would run away from physical contact. But I think with Jamie Amy, maybe he would finally let it go. If not, he would at least be able to run around town and tell everybody, yeah, you know Jamie Amy? That's my girlfriend. And he'd be able to tell them that she was a porn star. That would be a lot for him, because remember, he craves notoriety. He craves attention, and that would get him attention. Plus, he could milk her profession for all it's worth in terms of manipulation, using his tears and his anger, and blame it all on the fact that she has a job where she has sex with hundreds of men. Just imagine the power he would feel. I don't know personally if I could come home knowing she took about 50 facials that day and she wants me to kiss her on the cheek. I think Lorne would probably do it anyway and then run away giggling like a little schoolgirl. Plus, he's probably a cuck, so that might turn him on. Next, we have Ramona. And I almost forget about her all the time because her calls are infuriating, and they're also Lorne Vortex in spades. And she kind of brings it on because Ramona has her own vortex. But Lorne, thing one, thing two, the fact of the matter is she drives him crazy. Do I think he would be physical with her? Maybe, but she's professional. She has friends. She could get out of that situation. So could Jamie Amy. Maybe. I think Lorne would try to keep Jamie Amy prisoner, but I think Ramona would be able to just walk out on her own. She could dominate him when it came down to it. His voicemails to Ramona were chilling. You got a lot of explaining to do? Ramona would drive him crazy. The first time Lorne asked Ramona where she wanted to eat, then gave her 100 choices, and then she would go back to the first choice they talked about. He would snap. Another thing that Ramona has going for her is her family. They would be involved in the relationship. Lorne would have to answer to them because an abuser likes to put on that friendly act. I love you. Oh, things are great. Hi, honey. But we know that behind the scenes, he would be a rage monster. So we're going to bank on the fact that her family would want to know what's going on at all times, and they would help her get out of that situation. She talked about her family, her brother who would stomp Lorne, the doctor who would stomp Lorne, and then you got the therapist who would stomp Lorne out. She would have an easier time getting out. Next up is Debbie. Tiffany in real life and Debbie laugh in a way that you can't tell whether they're laughing at you or with you. And that would drive me crazy. But she was able to get past his anger. But I know, and you know, Lorne only did those things to try to get in her pants. He thought that reading the chat log was going to get him laid. He thought that being a pathetic loser was going to get him laid. He thought that changing slowly, it's coming slow, was going to get him laid. But we know it wasn't. Debbie knew it wasn't. But remember, she told Lorne they weren't in a relationship. And he went for it anyway, assuming they were because he had feelings for her. He was obsessed with her. And if she really did look like Malibu Barbie, wow. There's no way he would willingly let that go, looking the way he is, knowing he'd have to go out and You've seen those guys that get a perfect woman, and they get divorced or they break up, and they just lose it. And regular, rational guys would turn into raving lunatics, stalkers. And I don't think that Lorne could let it go. I think everywhere he went, guys would be staring at her. Lorne would be paranoid. Now, when they're out, he might feel like a stud, but as soon as he got home, his little brain would start working, and she was cheating on him. But maybe Debbie could be a dominatrix. She was good for him in some ways. She tried to help him. But here's my dilemma. Because Lorne would be obsessed with her, because he would want her to see him as a real man, I don't know if in person he would admit all of these things, and if she didn't give it up, I think he would realize everything he had just done all that time was spent in vain. So Debbie would have been second. Finally, Emma. Lorne needed Emma, the mom. Emma seems like the kind of woman that would sit on the couch with you with her head in your lap or her feet in your lap, and you'd be watching a movie, chilling out, go out to dinner, have a nice conversation. I'm talking about the nurturing Emma. It would be a perfect substitute for his mom. She would be able to possibly calm him down, but untreated, it's almost impossible to calm a bipolar person down. And I think eventually he would just take it for granted. Well, she's going to stay with me. She's going to work with it through me, so I can just be however I want. Because in one of the calls, Lorne told Jamie Amy that it was okay that he was stalking Debbie because she knew it was his pattern of behavior and that she expected it. So Emma, not being forceful, might have to expect that he's going to be a psychotic asshole. Now that's how he should have ended up. With him, I think Debbie would have been number one, and then Winnie, possibly Casey. I think Winnie, when he was in the middle of fighting for her, no matter what, no matter how many times he thought she was cheating on him, I think Ramona would have been at the bottom or near the bottom of the list. She was too much trouble. He couldn't get his way with her. Jamie Amy, possibly at the bottom of the list because of her profession, but Lorne was so desperate recently that he had no idea how to deal with it, but he couldn't let her go. I think Emma would be his last because she would make too much sense, and he sees her as a friend, and she never talked, you're not going to talk sexually to me. She never talked sexually to him. And so I think that's a problem with a lot of these catfish. That's just my opinion. I love you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. I will see you in the next one.